Hello everyone. In this video I want to show you the Project Explorer and exactly what that is. If you're new to VBA, this is a good introduction because you're going to be in the environment a lot and you're going to use the Project Explorer frequently. So before we get to that, I want to show you how do you get to the environment. How do you get to the environment where you could write macros? Well, one thing you could do is press Alt F11 and I could do that right now. So if I press Alt F11, I have the Visual Basic environment. It pops up here. That's what this screen is. But a better way to do that is to put the developer toolbar, developer tab on your toolbar. And how you do that is you click the Microsoft circle in the upper left, and then you go to Excel options, and then go to popular here, and click on this Show Developer tab in the ribbon. And when you click OK, you're going to see that now you have a Developer tab here. And if I click on it, I have all these options that are related to VBA. So when you're writing in VBA, you want to know about this and you want to have this available. So make sure you have that on your toolbar. And then all you need to do is go to the tab, and to get to the environment, you click this Visual Basic. And you see, like I said, that little pop-up, it says Alt F11. You could either press Alt F11 or click this icon here, either one. So I'm going to click this icon, and what happens is the Visual Basic editor opens up. And initially when it opens up, you might see it like this, where it has a project window here, and it has a properties window here, and it has a watches window down below. All these windows have a X next to them, and you could close them. So I could close that watches window, I could close this properties window, and I could close this Project Explorer window. So now I'm left with just a blank gray screen here in the editor. And I just wanted to show you that because it's customizable. You could add windows to this or take them away. So in this video we're going to cover the Project Explorer, and I'm going to start with a blank editor like this, and I want to add the Project Explorer, so I'm going to click this little icon here. And I could also press Control R. That pop-up says I could do Control R or click this icon. So just remember Control R if you want a shortcut key. So when you press that icon, what pops up is this Project Explorer. And what that is just it's the window where objects are organized, and where you can click on an object. If I click on this object, sheet 1, this window opens up, and this is called the code window, and I'll cover that in another video. But the main thing I want to show in this video is what is this Project Explorer, what are objects, what is this project, VBA project, what is all this stuff about. So the Project Explorer has projects in it. So Microsoft Excel equates every workbook with a project. So you see here I have a workbook called the VBA environment.xlsx, and it made a project here. And then it has a little tree structure where you could tree into it. If I click on this, you have objects within that tree, within that project, I'm sorry. And those objects are Microsoft Excel objects. And Microsoft Excel objects are what you typically see. They're worksheets. So here's sheet 1, here's sheet 2, and sheet 3, and they're also workbooks. And they have a object here called this workbook. And all these things are places where you can write your code, your macro code. Why does it say sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3 in this workbook? Well, by default, when you open a Microsoft Excel workbook, you automatically get 3 sheets, and you automatically have a workbook open. So that is why you see 3 sheets here and a workbook, because by default you have 3 sheets. Now if you had more than 3 sheets, you would see 10 sheets here, or 20, however many sheets you have, you're going to see all the sheets here, and if they're different names, you're going to see the name here. And you're always going to have one of this workbook, and that is because you have a workbook open, so you could write code here. So what do I mean by that? So if you double click on one of these, now I'm in the code window, so the code window will pop up, and you could write your macros here like sub macro sheet 1, because I'm in the sheet 1 object here. I'm in the sheet 1 object, so my macro sub sheet run macro sub macro sheet 1, I'm sorry, and I could write a macro here, and I could do the same thing in sheet 2, and I could do the same thing in sheet 3. I could write macros anywhere I want. So these are just places where you can write macros. And I could do the same thing here in this workbook. I could write the same thing, sub this workbook. I'm just doing this pretty quick, but I just want to show you that all these things all these objects are places where you could double click and write some code. That's it. Now, if you have 20 sheets or 30 sheets or 15 sheets, do you want to be flipping through all those sheets trying to find the macro that you wrote? No, you don't. So what most VBA, what I would say 90%, 95% of VBA developers do is they don't write their code like this, where you have to click on an object, a sheet object, and write your code. Instead, what they do is write their code in modules. So let's insert a module, and we'll see where that goes. Okay, so now we have a new tree structure. Before we just had Microsoft Excel objects, but now we have these module node in the tree. And the module is the same exact thing. It's just a place. So I double click module 1. It's just a place where I could write code. I could write a macro right here. And this is how VBA developers do it. So they use modules, they insert modules, and they write their code in modules. And why do they do that? Well, it's just organizationally way better to write your code in modules, because you can, I could rename this module, and I'll show you how to do that in the video that covers the properties window. So you could customize your project by adding modules and then renaming the modules to specifically, let's say I have a module for a company macros and then another module for department macros, or you could organize your project that way. That way it's very explicit what are these macros. You can't really rename your sheets according to your macros, but with modules you can, and that's why a lot of times VBA developers use it. You could also in these projects, so that's all I'm going to say right now about modules and sheet objects, but just know that all they are is places you could write code, and you could write, not just one subroutine or macro. You could put 15 macros in here, 20 macros, as much as you want. So I also want to say that you can insert other things like a class module or a user form, and I'll cover those in other videos, but just know that basically you're just adding things to a project. And right now I want to show you when I originally said Microsoft Excel considers every Microsoft Excel workbook as a project. I want to show you what I mean by that. So if I open up another workbook, you should see another project here. So if I go to this same instance of Excel and I go to open and I open another workbook here, I have this workbook called examples. So now I have this examples workbook open. So I have two workbooks open, right? I have this one called the VBA environment, and the other one I just showed you is called examples. So now if I click on the Visual Basic icon here, well, what do I have? I have two projects. I have my original project, which is the VBA environment, which is what I was showing you just recently, with my 3 default sheets and this workbook. And I could write code behind here, like I said, about VBA developers write their code in modules, and that's a project linked up to this VBA environment workbook. But since I opened another Microsoft Excel workbook, I have another project open, and so when I tree into that, look at, I have all kinds of sheets here. I have 8 sheets, and you see that Microsoft Excel lists it as sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, sheet 4, up to sheet 8, and these are actually the names of the sheets. So just compare this, which is a default project, sheet 1 is sheet 1, versus like a customized project that you would normally see. Sheet 1 is actually named L2 loops. And then sheet 2 is actually named L6 find, and things like that. So I also have forms here. So when I said I could insert a user form, well, that's what I did here. And when you do that, you'll get another node here, and you could have a form here. I also inserted modules here, and I did that by going here, and I inserted a module. So here's my module in this workbook. But notice that since I have the workbook open, I can access the project. And then I have a class module. So I have two workbooks open, and I have two projects accessible to me. And I could write code in either workbook. So that's what's pretty neat about the Project Explorer, is that you could have 12, 15 workbooks open, and you could be writing code in workbook number 1 here. Say I was writing code in this module. Here I'm in a module in the example XLS workbook, and I could write some code. And then right away I could just double click on this module, which is in this workbook, and I could write more code. So it's as easy as that, to write code in modules or in sheets, and it's as easy as that to add forms. So I just want to show you what the Project Explorer is. It's made of project, and what is a project? Well, it's a Microsoft Excel workbook, and within that project you have objects. They could be Microsoft Excel objects like this, sheets, or they could be other objects like forms or modules or class modules. So that's what I wanted to show you in this video, and I just want to show you one more thing, that if you want to remove a module, so let me add a module here. So I'll click on this project, and I'm going to add a module, and now I have two modules down here. But I just want to show you how to remove a module. So to do that, you just right click it and you go to remove module, and it says, do you want to export the module before removing? And if you want to use this module in other places, you can click yes, and you could save it and import it into other Excel workbooks and macros. But I don't want to export it, so I'm going to say no. So then I just remove the module. So I just want to show you that in case you insert lots of modules and you want to ask, well, how do I get rid of them? You do it like that. So that's what this video was all about, the Project Explorer. In the next video about the Visual Basic Editor, I'll go into the properties window and how to and all the things that can do. So remember, here is the Project Explorer, and this is the Visual Basic Editor, and everything here in the Project Explorer is just areas where you can write code. Okay, and you want to remember that you want to use modules. You don't want to put your code behind sheets 99% of the time. And also you can add other objects like forms and class modules, and I'll get into those in other videos. But that's it for this video. I also want to remind you that if you want to download any of these macro files, go to excelvbasql.com, and you can watch all these videos and download the files. Okay, thanks. Bye.